Princess Yelexa sat on her throne, hands clenched tightly in her lap. Her large, violet eyes scanned the grand hall of the Sylvani Palace, but she already knew what was coming. One by one, the alien suitors stood before her, gave her a polite bow, and spoke the same dreaded words. "I am honored, Your Highness, but I must decline." Some made excuses, pretending they had other commitments. Others simply looked at her tiny frame, shook their heads, and walked away without even trying to hide their disappointment. The worst ones didn't even bother to speak. They only laughed before turning their backs on her. Yelexa felt her throat tighten, but she refused to cry. A Sylvani princess did not cry, no matter how much rejection she faced. The hall was filled with representatives from dozens of alien species. Tall, armored Draxians with their reptilian scales, elegant Elvari nobles with their glowing skin, and the mighty Orgrath warlords with their powerful tusks. They had all come to witness the grand event, the selection of the Sylvani princess's future consort. But now it was clear. No one wanted her. The Sylvani were one of the most intelligent species in the galaxy, known for their advanced technology and unmatched knowledge. However, their bodies were small and fragile compared to other races. Unlike the towering warriors of the galaxy, Yelexa barely reached the waist of most alien males. She was delicate, her silver hair falling in soft waves around her pointed ears. To the rest of the galaxy, she looked more like a child than a ruler. And in a universe where strength was respected above all else, she was nothing. Her father, Emperor Valen, sat beside her, his face a mask of calm. But Yelexa knew he was furious. He had hoped that by offering a royal marriage, the Sylvani could secure a powerful alliance. Instead, they had been humiliated. The last suitor, a Xeeler diplomat with shimmering green skin, stepped forward. He barely looked at her before shaking his head. "I apologize, Your Highness, but my people would never accept such a weak bond." With that, he turned and left. Silence filled the room. The rejection was now complete. The Sylvani nobles whispered among themselves, their worried gazes darting toward Yelexa. Without a consort, her position as heir was uncertain. And without a strong ruler, the empire was vulnerable. Yelexa rose to her feet, her voice steady despite the humiliation. "Thank you all for attending," she said, her tone even. "The selection is over." She turned sharply and walked out of the hall, keeping her head high. She would not let them see her pain. That night, she stood on the balcony of the royal palace, looking over the glowing city below. The Sylvani homeworld was beautiful, its skies painted with swirling shades of purple and blue. Floating spires reached toward the stars, filled with some of the brightest minds in the galaxy. And yet, for all their intelligence, they were powerless in the face of brute strength. Yelexa gripped the railing. Was she truly so worthless? Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of footsteps. She turned to see her father approaching. "You handled today with grace," he said, his deep voice filled with unspoken emotions. "It doesn't matter," she replied. "The result is the same. No one wants a weak princess." The emperor sighed, stepping beside her. "The galaxy is cruel. They respect power above all else." Yelexa lowered her gaze. "Then maybe I am not fit to rule." Her father was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke carefully. "There is another option." She frowned, looking up at him. "What do you mean?" The emperor turned to face her, his golden eyes serious. "There is one species that does not follow the rules of the galaxy. One species that does not judge based on size or tradition." Yelexa blinked. "You mean?" "Yes," he confirmed. "The humans." A shiver ran through her spine. Humans were different from every other race in the galaxy. They were unpredictable, stubborn, and impossible to control. They had risen from a single planet to become one of the fastest-growing civilizations in the universe, defying every expectation. But most importantly, humans did not care about galactic traditions. They valued something else: determination. Yelexa hesitated. The thought of marrying a human was shocking. The other nobles would be outraged. The alien empires would laugh at them even more. And yet, perhaps this was her only chance. She took a deep breath and looked her father in the eye. "Find me a human." A small smile touched the emperor's lips. "As you wish, my daughter." And with those words, the fate of the Sylvani Empire changed forever. The towering halls of the United Galactic Assembly buzzed with life as diplomats, warriors, and leaders from across the stars moved through its shining corridors. Princess Yelexa walked with purpose, her silver robes flowing behind her as she followed her father through the endless marble pathways. She felt the weight of every gaze upon her. They all knew why she was here. She could hear the whispers. The Sylvani princess is desperate. No alien male wanted her, and now she's turning to humans. Pathetic. Yelexa kept her head high, ignoring the murmurs. Let them talk. She would not let their words weaken her resolve. If no other species valued her, she would find one that did. As they reached the grand conference chamber, Emperor Valen turned to his daughter. "Are you ready for this?" Yelexa took a deep breath and nodded. "I have to be." The doors opened, and they stepped inside. The chamber was vast, with golden pillars stretching high into the ceiling. Dozens of alien delegates sat in curved rows, their expressions ranging from curiosity to amusement. At the center of the room stood a group of humans, their uniforms sharp, their eyes watchful. Yelexa had heard much about humans, but this was her first time seeing them up close. They were not the tallest species, nor the strongest looking, but there was something different about them. They carried themselves with a quiet confidence, as if they feared nothing. And among them, one man caught her attention. He stood slightly apart from the others, his broad shoulders relaxed, yet alert. His dark hair was neatly trimmed, and his deep brown eyes held a sharpness that made him stand out. Unlike the other alien representatives, he wasn't watching her with judgment or amusement. He was simply observing. Emperor Valen cleared his throat. "Honored representatives of humanity, I come before you with a request." The human delegation exchanged glances before the tallest among them. An older man with gray at his temples stepped forward. "I am Admiral Carter of the Terran Alliance. We are listening." Valen spoke with the practiced ease of a ruler. "The Sylvani Empire seeks an alliance with humanity, and for that, my daughter requires a consort." A ripple of surprise moved through the humans. One of them, a blond officer, coughed. "You're asking a human to marry your daughter?" Yelexa braced herself for laughter, but it never came. The humans looked at each other, exchanging unreadable glances, but none of them mocked the proposal. Then the man with brown eyes spoke. "What does the princess think of this?" Yelexa turned to him. His voice was calm, steady. He wasn't dismissing her. He was asking her opinion. That alone made him different from every other alien she had met. She straightened her back. "I will not pretend this is a normal request. It is not. But I am willing to do what is necessary to secure my people's future." The man studied her for a moment. Then he stepped forward, placing a hand on his chest in a respectful salute. "Commander Elias Vance, Terran Defense Force." Yelexa blinked. He had introduced himself formally. No alien male had ever done that before. Admiral Carter sighed, rubbing his temple. "Commander, are you seriously considering this?" Elias shrugged. "A strategic marriage isn't unheard of in human history, and from what I've read about the Sylvani, they're brilliant strategists." His gaze flickered toward Yelexa. "A leader willing to take risks for her people. That's rare." Yelexa felt something shift inside her. For the first time in her life, someone was not seeing her as weak. Admiral Carter sighed again. "You always did have strange instincts, Vance." He turned to Valen. "If my officer agrees, humanity will not oppose it. But understand this, humans do not treat marriage as a political game. If this happens, it will be real." Yalexa's heart pounded. A real union, not just for appearances, but a true partnership. Elias met her gaze. If I agree to this, it won't be just for show. I don't take oaths lightly. Yelexa took a deep breath. This was it, her one chance to prove her worth. Then, Commander Elias Vance, she said, her voice steady, do you accept? There was a long silence. The entire chamber waited. Then Elias Vance gave a small, confident smile. I do. And with that, everything changed. The royal palace of the Sylvani Empire stood like a shining crystal in the heart of the capital city. Its towering spires reflected the soft glow of the twin moons, casting silver light over the vast courtyards and gardens. Inside the grand halls, whispers filled the air. Servants, nobles, and officials all spoke of the same thing, the human. Commander Elias Vance walked beside Princess Yelexa through the endless corridors, his sharp eyes taking in everything. The palace was beautiful, unlike anything he had seen before, but he could also feel the tension in the air. The Sylvani nobles watched him with a mix of curiosity, suspicion, and outright disapproval. He was used to that. So, this is my new home, Elias said, breaking the silence. Yelexa glanced at him. Does it not meet your expectations? Elias smirked. I expected fewer people staring at me like I'm some kind of wild animal. Yelexa sighed. You are the first human to ever step inside these halls. Many believe you do not belong here. Elias chuckled. I've been in worse situations. They stopped in front of a set of tall doors. Yelexa turned to him, her expression serious. This is the royal council chamber. The high nobles will expect you to prove yourself. Elias nodded. Let's not keep them waiting. The doors opened, revealing a grand room filled with Sylvani nobles dressed in shimmering robes. They sat in curved rows, their expressions unreadable. At the center of the room stood Emperor Valen, his golden eyes calm but firm. Commander Elias Vance, the Emperor spoke, his voice echoing through the chamber. You have accepted the role of consort to my daughter. But before you are truly accepted, the council wishes to test your worth. Elias folded his arms. And how do they plan to do that? A noblewoman with silver hair stood. The Sylvani value intellect above all else. A leader must have wisdom, strategy, and a sharp mind. We wish to test yours. Elias raised an eyebrow. You want me to take a test? Another noble scoffed. Do you believe humans are above proving themselves? Elias chuckled. No, I just didn't expect my first challenge to be a quiz. Yelexa hid a small smile. The nobles did not. An elder Sylvani tapped a control panel, and a holographic display appeared in the air. These are some of the most complex tactical simulations we have. If you truly wish to be part of our empire, you must show us your intelligence. Elias glanced at the screen. Rows of data, battlefield maps, and complex mathematical formulas flickered before him. He could feel the nobles waiting for him to fail. He grinned. All right, let's do this. Minutes passed as Elias worked through the test, his fingers moving swiftly over the controls. The nobles whispered among themselves, some sneering, some watching in fascination. Yelexa had seen many take this test before, military leaders, brilliant scholars, tactical minds trained for years. Elias had none of their background, yet he remained calm, confident. Then, the final result appeared. The room fell silent. The elder Sylvani's eyes widened. This is unexpected. One noble leaned forward. His score, he beat most of our own commanders. Murmurs filled the hall. Yelexa felt a surge of pride. Elias had done what no alien had before. He turned to her and smirked. Not bad for a human, huh? Before Yelexa could reply, a deep voice cut through the noise. This proves nothing. A tall Sylvani male stepped forward. He was dressed in dark robes, his sharp features twisted in disdain. Yelexa tensed. Lord Kalis, one of the most powerful nobles in the empire, and one of her strongest opponents. Kalis sneered at Elias. Strategy is important, but a ruler must also be strong, and humans are weak. Elias rolled his shoulders. Is that a challenge? Kalis smirked. If you wish to stand beside our princess, then face me in combat. Prove you are worthy. The nobles gasped. Yalexa's heart pounded. This was not part of the plan. She stepped forward. Lord Kalis, this is unnecessary. Elias raised a hand, stopping her. His expression was calm, but his eyes gleamed with something sharp. I accept. The room erupted in whispers. Kalis's smirk widened. Then let us see what the human can do. As the nobles prepared for the match, Yalexa turned to Elias, her voice low. Are you sure about this? Kalis is one of our strongest warriors. Elias grinned. Good. I'd hate for this to be too easy. Yalexa stared at him, then let out a soft laugh. For the first time in a long while, she felt something strange. Hope. The royal training arena was filled with spectators. Nobles, guards, and even palace servants gathered in the stands, whispering excitedly. They had come to witness something unheard of, a human challenging a Sylvani warrior. Princess Yalexa stood near the edge of the arena, her hands clenched into fists. She had seen Lord Kalis fight before. He was one of the most skilled Sylvani warriors, his body enhanced by genetic modifications and years of training. His movements were precise, his strikes deadly. And now, Elias Vance, a human from Earth, was about to fight him. She glanced at Elias. He stood calmly on the other side of the sand-covered arena, rolling his shoulders as he stretched. He wasn't wearing armor like Kalis, just his simple Terran Defense Force uniform. Does he even know what he's doing? The Sylvani official stepped forward and raised his hand. This is a formal duel. The fight will continue until one yields or is unable to continue. No weapons, only skill. Kalis smirked. This will be over quickly. Elias grinned. Let's see about that. The official lowered his hand. Begin. Kalis moved first. He was fast, much faster than an unmodified human should have been able to handle. He lunged forward, aiming a powerful strike at Elias's chest. Elias sidestepped smoothly, barely avoiding the hit. He moved with a different kind of speed, not the enhanced reflexes of the Sylvani, but the trained instincts of a soldier who had fought real battles. Kalis frowned. He attacked again, this time with a spinning kick aimed at Elias's ribs. Elias blocked with his forearm and countered with a punch straight to Kalis's jaw. The nobles gasped. Kalis staggered back, eyes wide. He hadn't expected Elias to hit that hard. Elias smiled. Not bad, huh? Kalis growled and attacked again, faster and more aggressive. He struck at Elias's torso, aiming to knock him down. But Elias moved differently. He wasn't trying to match Kalis in pure strength. He was reading him. Every attack Kalis threw, Elias dodged or blocked at just the right moment. Then, Elias struck back. A quick jab to Kalis's ribs. A swift kick to his leg, making him stumble. A sharp elbow to his side. Kalis roared in frustration. Stop dodging and fight me properly. Elias smirked. I am fighting you. You're just too slow to keep up. Kalis's face twisted in rage. He lunged again, but this time Elias didn't dodge. Instead, he grabbed Kalis's arm, twisted his body, and threw him over his shoulder. The entire arena gasped. Kalis hit the ground hard, coughing as he struggled to get up. But before he could recover, Elias was already moving. He pressed a knee to Kalis's chest and locked his arm in a painful hold. Kalis froze. He knew this position. If he moved wrong, Elias could dislocate his shoulder, or worse. Elias leaned closer. Yield. Kalis's jaw clenched, his pride screaming at him to resist. But he wasn't an idiot. He had underestimated the human, and now he had lost. He growled in frustration. I yield. The official raised his hand. The match is over. The human wins. Silence filled the arena. Then, murmurs spread through the crowd. The human won. He defeated Kalis. How is that possible? Yalexa stared at Elias in shock. He had won. Elias stood and stepped back, letting Kalis rise. The Sylvani noble's face was dark with anger. But he gave a stiff nod. You fight well. Elias grinned. You're not bad either. Kalis glared, but there was something else in his eyes now. Respect. Yalexa stepped forward, her voice clear. Commander Elias Vance has proven his worth. Let no one doubt his place among the Sylvani. The nobles murmured again, but this time there was no mockery, only curiosity. As Elias walked over to Yalexa, she looked at him with new admiration. How did you beat him? Elias smirked. I've fought people bigger and stronger than me before. Strength isn't everything. Sometimes, the smarter fighter wins. Yalexa smiled softly. Perhaps humans were more than she had thought. Word of Elias Vance's victory over Lord Kalis spread through the palace like wildfire. The nobles who had once whispered against him now looked at him with curiosity, some even with a hint of respect. Even those who still disapproved could no longer call him weak. For the first time since her search for a consort had begun, Princess Yalexa felt hopeful. She sat beside Elias in the palace gardens, watching as the twin moons cast a soft silver glow over the carefully arranged flowers and fountains. The air smelled sweet, carrying the gentle hum of night creatures in the distance. Elias leaned back on the stone bench, stretching his arms. You know, I thought being engaged to an alien princess would be more difficult. Yalexa raised an eyebrow. You call fighting one of the strongest Sylvani warriors easy. Elias smirked. Didn't say that. But so far, nobody has tried to assassinate me, so I'd say it's been a good day. Yalexa gave him a sharp look, but Elias only laughed. Relax, princess. I've been in dangerous places before. This is just another mission to me. Yalexa frowned slightly. Is that all this is? A mission? Elias glanced at her, his smirk fading slightly. He didn't answer right away, and for some reason, that silence made Yalexa's heart tighten. Before she could press further, a voice interrupted them. You are needed in the council chamber, princess. Yalexa turned to see one of her father's advisors standing at the entrance of the garden. She sighed and rose to her feet. Another meeting. My father wishes to discuss the alliance. Elias stood up beside her. Want me to come with you? She hesitated, then nodded. Yes, you should hear this too. The council chamber was filled with high-ranking nobles, military officials, and Emperor Valen himself. Yalexa took her seat beside her father, while Elias stood slightly behind her, his arms crossed. The emperor's gaze swept over the gathered nobles. The alliance with humanity moves forward, but there are those who believe this union is still a mistake. One noble, a thin man with dark silver robes, stepped forward. Your Majesty, we do not question your wisdom, but an alliance with humans, a species that is untested in the greater galactic conflicts. Elias chuckled softly. Untested. You clearly haven't done your research. The noble's eyes narrowed. Human, you are a soldier, not a ruler. Your people have not faced wars on the scale of the galactic empires. Elias's expression darkened slightly. Oh, we faced wars. The only difference is that we don't talk about them like they're political games. A murmur spread through the council. Yalexa watched Elias carefully. There was something in his voice, a hardness, a weight that suggested he had seen things most of them could not imagine. Emperor Valen raised a hand for silence. The strength of humanity has already been demonstrated by Commander Vance. But if proof is what you require, then proof you shall have. The Emperor tapped a control panel, and a large holographic display flickered to life. It showed a star map, a region of space near the Sylvani borders. Yalexa's eyes widened. The outer colonies. The Emperor nodded. We have received troubling reports. A hostile fleet is moving toward our outermost settlements. It is not an empire we recognize. Their ships are unlike any we have encountered before. One of the military generals stepped forward. They do not respond to hails. They do not negotiate. They consume. Elias frowned. Sounds like you've got a bigger problem than just political disagreements. The noble in silver robes crossed his arms. We do not require human assistance. The Sylvani fleet can handle. Emperor Valen silenced him with a look. You forget, Lord Darren, that our forces are spread thin. And if this threat is truly as dangerous as we fear, we cannot afford to underestimate it. He turned to Elias. Commander Vance, would humanity stand with us against this unknown enemy? Elias didn't hesitate. If the Sylvani are our allies, then we won't turn our backs on them. Yelexa felt warmth spread in her chest at his words. He wasn't just saying this because of duty. He meant it. The Emperor nodded. Then it is decided. We will face this enemy together. As the council began discussing battle plans, Yelexa leaned toward Elias. You didn't even pause before answering. Elias shrugged. You needed help. That's enough for me. Yelexa felt something shift inside her, a deep respect, a growing admiration, and perhaps something more. The Sylvani Imperial fleet moved through the cold void of space, its sleek silver warships forming tight formations as they approached the outer colonies. The threat was real. The reports were not exaggerated. Elias Vance stood on the bridge of the SIS Valor, watching the holographic map display the incoming enemy fleet. The unknown ships were massive, black as shadows, moving in perfect synchronization like a swarm. Princess Yelexa stood beside him, her face serious. We sent diplomatic signals. No response. No demands. No messages. They are coming for one reason. Elias nodded. Total destruction. A Sylvani officer spoke up. They call themselves the Drexis. They have wiped out 3 independent colonies already. No survivors. Elias narrowed his eyes. What do we know about their tactics? General Talon, a battle-scarred Sylvani warrior, crossed his arms. They overwhelm with numbers. They do not retreat. They do not take prisoners. Elias exhaled. This wasn't just another enemy. This was extermination. The ship's sensors beeped loudly. A crew member shouted, "Enemy fleet approaching." 5 minutes to engagement. The tension in the air thickened. Yelexa turned to Elias. Are you ready for this? Elias smirked. You ever seen humans in a real fight? Yelexa raised an eyebrow. You won one duel, Elias. This is war. Elias's smirk faded slightly. He looked out at the approaching darkness. I know. That's why I'm taking this seriously. The battle began. The Drex's ships surged forward like a black tide, firing energy beams that tore through the outer defenses. The Sylvani fleet responded with precision, their advanced weapons striking back with deadly force. The void was filled with explosions as ships from both sides shattered into debris. On board the SIS Valor, Elias coordinated with the Sylvani officers. We need to break their formation. Focus fire on the leading ships. The order was relayed, and the fleet adjusted. Bright plasma beams lanced through space, taking down several Drexis warships. But more came. Too many. Elias gritted his teeth. This isn't working. Then he had an idea. What's their weakest point? General Talon frowned. Unknown. Their ships seem to regenerate damage over time. Elias cursed under his breath. That complicates things. Then Yelexa's eyes widened. Their movements, they are too perfect, almost like one mind controlling all of them. Elias's eyes snapped to the sensor readings. You're right. That means they have a central command ship. Talon's expression turned serious. If we destroy their command ship, the rest may collapse. Elias nodded. Then let's take out their brain. The SIS Valor broke from the main fleet, weaving through enemy fire. Sylvani pilots followed, forming a strike team heading straight for the largest Drexis ship at the heart of the fleet. The closer they got, the stronger the resistance. Drex's fighters swarmed them, forcing tight evasive maneuvers. One Sylvani ship exploded nearby, sending debris flying. Elias gripped his seat. "We need an opening." Yalexa's voice was sharp. "If we don't act now, we'll be overwhelmed." Elias took a deep breath. Then he made a decision. "Take me there." Yalexa turned to him in shock. "What?" Elias's eyes burned with determination. "If this is like a hive mind, then the command ship isn't just giving orders. It's the core. A direct strike inside could disable the whole fleet." Talon shook his head. "That's suicide." Elias smirked. "Only if I fail." Yalexa hesitated. She had fought alongside warriors before, but Elias was different. His confidence wasn't arrogance, it was belief. She made her decision. "I'm going with you." Elias's smirk disappeared. "Yalexa." She stepped closer. "This is my empire, my people. I won't let you do this alone." Elias studied her for a moment, then nodded. "All right, let's end this." The shuttle launched from the SIS Valor, dodging enemy fire as it raced toward the Drex's command ship. Inside, Elias and Yalexa stood side by side, armed and ready. The moment the ship touched down, the doors opened, and they charged into the darkness. The shuttle's doors hissed open, revealing the dark interior of the Drex's command ship. The air was thick and cold, filled with a strange humming sound that vibrated through the walls. Elias Vance gripped his weapon tightly, scanning the corridor ahead. Beside him, Princess Yalexa held her own plasma pistol, her golden eyes sharp and focused. "We move fast," Elias whispered. "Take out whatever we find, reach the control core, and shut this thing down." Yalexa nodded. "Let's finish this." They stepped forward cautiously, their boots echoing against the metal floor. The ship's interior was nothing like a standard war vessel. It was organic, almost alive. Strange pulsing veins ran along the walls, glowing with dim blue light. Then the walls shifted. Elias barely had time to react before dark. Insect-like creatures emerged from the shadows, their claws clicking against the floor. They moved unnaturally fast, their glowing red eyes locked onto the intruders. "Here they come," Elias shouted. The creatures lunged. Elias fired first, his pulse rifle cutting through the air. The shot hit the nearest creature, sending it crashing into the wall. Yalexa fired alongside him, her precise shots taking down 2 more. But more were coming. Elias grabbed Yalexa's hand and pulled her into a side corridor. "We need to move. They'll just keep coming." They ran, weaving through the twisting halls of the command ship. The strange humming sound grew louder, almost like a heartbeat. Yalexa's breath was heavy. The core must be close. Elias nodded. "Then we make our stand there." They reached a massive circular chamber at the center of the ship. At its heart stood a towering black structure, pulsing with eerie light. "The control core," Yalexa said. Elias gritted his teeth. "Let's shut it down." Before they could take another step, the walls came alive. Hundreds of Drex's creatures emerged, their red eyes glowing with hatred. They surrounded the chamber, clicking their claws as they prepared to strike. Elias glanced at Yalexa. "Hope you brought enough ammo." Yalexa smirked. "Try to keep up, human." Then, the creatures attacked. Elias and Yalexa fought like warriors. Elias moved with military precision, every shot landing with deadly accuracy. He dodged a claw swipe, spun around, and slammed his rifle into a creature's head before blasting another point blank. Yalexa fought with the grace of a trained royal warrior. She ducked low, fired 2 shots in quick succession, then flipped over a charging Drexus, landing perfectly before striking another down. But the creatures did not stop. More climbed from the walls, more poured in from the halls. Elias's weapon beeped, low power. "We can't hold them forever," Yalexa shouted. Elias looked at the control core. "We don't have to." He grabbed a high explosive charge from his belt. "Cover me." Yelexa fired rapidly, keeping the Drexus at bay as Elias rushed toward the core. A creature leaped at him. He ducked, rolled forward, and slammed the explosive onto the core's surface. 5 seconds. Elias turned and ran. Time to go. Yelexa sprinted after him. The creatures chased, but it was too late. The charge detonated. A massive shockwave blasted through the chamber, sending Elias and Yelexa flying out the corridor. The walls shook violently, the humming sound turning into a piercing scream. The Drexus creatures collapsed all at once. Elias coughed, pushing himself up. Did it work? Yelexa helped him stand. Look! Through the ship's windows, they saw the Drexus fleet falling apart. Without their command structure, their formations broke. The Sylvani fleet took advantage, tearing through them with renewed firepower. Elias grinned. I think we just won. Back on the SIS Valor, cheers erupted as the last Drexus ship was destroyed. The battle was over. Elias and Yelexa stood on the bridge, watching the debris drift in space. General Talon approached them. The Drexus are finished. You two saved countless lives today. Elias smirked. Not bad for a human, huh? Yelexa turned to him, her golden eyes warm. Not bad at all. There was something in her gaze, something more than admiration. Elias felt it too. Maybe, just maybe, this alliance was more than just duty. It was the beginning of something greater.